everyone. Today we are talking about all things college admissions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bella and I'm a rising senior at Harvard. Exactly 4 years ago, I went through this process of applying to colleges myself, and right now is kind of a deja vu moment for me as I'm in the middle of applying to medical schools. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about what it takes to craft a really good application, all of which has led to this video. So today, I'm going to play your older sister and tell you everything that I wish I knew, from choosing schools to writing essays to scholarships and so on. Before we get into all the tips and tricks, we have to talk about picking the right schools to apply to. If you didn't know this already, we have to pay money each time we apply to one school, which can add up super fast and end up being very expensive. So it's important to make sure that we're applying to schools that are good fits for us and investments. How do we know this? The first step, I would say, is to look into specific programs. Don't just look at the rankings and statistics, but the specific offerings at each school. This is something I kind of overlooked during my own college search. As an example of what you shouldn't do, I went straight to the US News ranking and based my list from there. If I could go back in time, I would probably not do this. It did work out in the end, and I've had a great time in college so far, but I do think I could have saved some time and money by being more selective here. My advice is to look for school-specific programs that align with your goals and interests. There's a lot of hidden gems out there that gives you free tuition, a second degree, study abroad opportunities, and other amazing benefits. For example, there are certain dual degree programs that allow you to get an accelerated master's, law degree, medical degree, and so on. Let's say you are in high school and you already know that you want to go into medicine. Then you might consider direct medical programs that will allow you to finish medical school earlier and not even have to take the MCAT, which looking back would be a huge gift to your future self. Another example is if you're passionate about multiple things and don't necessarily want to give one up. There are dual degree programs where two schools partner with each other so the students can attend and get credit from both. The ones that come to my mind are the artistic programs at Johns Hopkins Peabody, Juilliard Columbia, and Brown RISD. So if you're passionate about the arts but want to major in something else, academic, these might be great options. Do the search earlier than later because these programs often have a separate timeline. Their deadlines might be months ahead of the official deadline. I remember I learned about some of these opportunities too late and wasn't able to send in an application in time. So if you think you would benefit from a certain program or a scholarship, I would be on the earlier side of things. In short, finding a good fit in the form of a program or a scholarship can save you some time, money, and sometimes emotional damage, even before starting the application process. Once you open Common App, you will see that you get 7 prompts for your personal essay. You do not, by any means, have to write all 7. Just choose one that you like best. As you'll see in the last prompt, you can write about literally anything for this. You can think of this essay as a mini autobiography, a diary entry, poetry, whatever you want. Personally, I think the essay is the most important part about your application. It's something that puts the rest of your application, like courses, numbers, extracurriculars, into a single memorable narrative. It's what ties everything together and makes you a human applicant. Since a prompt is so open-ended, it can be overwhelming at first to even brainstorm what to write about. The very first thing that I would do is look at some examples. You can simply Google example essays or go to a library and check out essay compilations. You don't have to read every single essay on these websites and books, but just flip through a few of them to get a feel for the type of writing that this is and what's been successful for other students in the past. Something I remember I looked at was a successful Harvard essay series, which I found in the Crimson, the Harvard student newspaper. Every few years, they publish student essays from the past into a single book, and these can be a great resource to learn more about what the schools are looking for in a personal statement. A fun fact is that my essay from when I applied is actually in the newest edition of this book, which is crazy that I read one of these as an applicant myself. I do use a fake name, so you're not going to see Bella labeled anywhere, but it's somewhere in there. Once you get a feel for what these essays are like, the next step is to come up with essay topics. The answer here is anything, literally anything. My roommates and I were talking about this, and we had such random and different essay topics, from going to a music concert, learning to make a pancake, childhood obsessions, and so on. But the common thread that I noticed was that they all had a really interesting storyline with an intro, conflict, and resolution. The best way I can put this is that you have to have quote-unquote main character energy when you go into this essay. What this means is that you want to make yourself the main character of a very compelling story where the readers come to like you and become your cheerleaders over time. The best and the easiest thing you can do is to show yourself overcoming challenges. These challenges don't have to be enormous or tragic. They could be, but not everyone has a Titanic kind of experience, so it's whatever you can talk about. It could be that you were introverted growing up and had a hard time raising your hand in class. Maybe your family moved to a new neighborhood or a country and you had to transition. Imagine you're watching a movie and the character already has everything they need and always wins. And there's another character who is more of an underdog. Doesn't always win at first, but tries really hard and gets creative to overcome challenges. Most of us will want to root for the second character more. This is a general vibe that we want to go for to make ourselves look more human, multidimensional, and relatable. One exercise you could do is think of 3 movie or cartoon characters that you really like. For me, they're Patrick Star from SpongeBob, Alice in Wonderland, and Willy Wonka. They seem kind of random at first, but they do have important qualities that I want to portray for myself. Patrick Star, to begin with, might seem lazy, but I would say he's a very resilient, shock-absorbing person who doesn't care about making mistakes. And he's just a really good friend in general, very loyal, kind of silly. Alice in Wonderland, I would say, is kind of clumsy, but she's a very curious person, which makes her persevere through all of these really weird situations. And Willy Wonka arguably is extremely passionate. He has this tunnel vision of what he wants, a chocolate kingdom. So from these characters, I might take away keywords like resilience, curiosity, and almost obsessive passion, and try to embody those qualities in my own essay. Overall, a lot of other parts of your application can highlight your academic strengths already, so I would suggest using this essay to highlight your personal qualities, not just qualifications, but qualities that make you a good person. Schools are looking not just for leaders and geniuses, but also who's going to make a good roommate and a friend. So take the personal statement as an opportunity to present yourself as who you are, the main character, and maybe even movify your life a little bit. Interview is another component of the college application process that I don't think is discussed enough. It's usually not something that you should stress out too much about because most of them are like an informal conversation. I would say that the purpose of most US college interviews is to get to know you better outside of your application and to help you learn more about the school by connecting you with someone from the school. With that being said, you can still prepare for these interviews, and I would actually recommend that you do put in some time and effort into preparing. This is especially if you're applying as an international and English might not be your first language. What I personally did was Google common college interview questions, record myself answering them, and just kind of keep trying until I felt comfortable with it. This gives you a third-person perspective of how you look on screen or on video, which is at first admittedly painful to watch, but very helpful in the end. Now, I think there are better ways of doing this with the rise of AI and new practice tools. One of those tools that I want to introduce to you today is ELSA. ELSA is an app that helps you with English pronunciation and speaking, and I genuinely wish I had something like this when I was preparing for my own interviews. It basically gives you practice opportunities and extremely specific feedback on your pronunciation, fluency, and intonation. The feature that I like the most is a freestyle mode where you just practice small talk with your phone, and at the end, it gives you a score and detailed feedback on how to improve your speaking. It also has a built-in dictionary that shows you how to pronounce a word or a phrase. You can directly speak into your phone and check your pronunciation as well. ELSA is a free app that you can download on your phone, but there's also a membership that you can get for more access to the tools. I'll be leaving a link to a 7-day free membership and a discount in the description, so please feel free to check them out if you're interested. I know a lot of you guys who watch my videos are international students, so I wanted to bring this up as a resource in case you're also looking to prepare for interviews. For me, I had been living in the US for about 8 years at the time, and I was pretty comfortable with the English language, but speaking English under pressure in an interview setting was something that I still wasn't super confident about. I would sometimes mispronounce things, get stuck in the middle of a sentence, and feel like I wasn't really presenting myself the way I wanted to be presented. So if you're in a similar boat as me, I think this tool, this app, will be especially helpful. Another tip I have for the interview is to have a bit of a template for common questions they ask, like tell me about a challenge you faced and what are you passionate about. This doesn't mean you should memorize an entire script, but it's really helpful to have the first sentence figured out. To give you an example, I always have the same answer to tell me about yourself. I'm a senior from blank high school. I grew up in this blank city. I'm a musician and an aspiring scientist interested in doing something with this in college. Something that I'm excited about right now is this topic in biology and blah blah blah. The key is to just get the opening figured out so that you know you have something to build on but still have the flexibility to adapt your responses on the spot. You're going to have different interviewers for each school who probably and hopefully don't know each other, who don't talk to each other. So it's okay and super helpful if you have a small template to get you going in the beginning. And you can workshop this template by recording yourself, maybe using tools like ELSA, to refine it and make sure you're talking about yourself in a way that makes you feel confident and fully yourself. Another thing you should keep in mind is whether the schools you're applying to track what's called demonstrated interest. I didn't even know this was a thing until it showed up on my college application. They asked me things like, did you attend our info session? Have you visited our campus? Or do you know anyone at the school? At first, I thought these were completely optional and that they wouldn't affect admissions at all. I'm sure they don't make or break your application, but it can give you a minor boost or a handicap. Not all schools do this, but many of them do, so I would definitely check by going on their websites or Googling the list of the schools that look at demonstrated interest. I later learned that this is all because colleges keep track of what's called the yield rate, which is a percentage of admitted students who actually attend the school. The higher the yield rate for a school, the more likely students are to ultimately choose to go to that school, which is a great thing for the school administration. This means that schools are more likely to admit students who they think are actually going to come, and demonstrated interest is how they measure this. So how do you demonstrate interest? There are 3 main ways to do this. Number 1 is to apply in the early round. You can choose to apply to schools through early action or early decision programs. For these, you can only apply to 1 per cycle, so it lets the school know that you're serious about attending and that this is your number 1 choice. Of course, if you want to have more options later on, especially with financial considerations, you should not apply to restrictive early programs. But if you really have your eyes set on a single school, it might be worth a shot. If you look at historical acceptance rates, they're usually higher for the early round than the regular round. Making a pros and cons list ahead of time can help you decide whether you go this route. When I was applying, I actually applied to another school early, but it wasn't a binding program and I could change my mind later. But some programs and some schools don't let you change your mind, so I would pay close attention to the rules. Number 2, show up to info sessions, especially if they check attendance. If you don't have access to info sessions in your area, that's also totally okay. In that case, the next point is going to be a bit more important for you. The last thing you can do is in the supplemental essay section mentioning specific things you like about that school. What about the school culture do you like? Which school organizations would you want to join on campus? What are some unique courses you can only take there? This is going to reassure the school that you are genuinely interested and that you would actually attend if admitted. The point is, that you want to make the schools feel important and loved. According to the theory of attraction, if you think someone likes you, you're more likely to like them back. This is exactly what we're doing here. I'm going to be using a lot of love and relationship analogy today. I think college admissions is in many ways like romance, so stay tuned. This tip is short and sweet. Optional simply doesn't mean optional. When the school gives you an opportunity to write an extra essay or submit a video portfolio, it's almost always better to do it like 99% of the time. The most famous one is probably for Brown University, which on their website says, while the video introduction is not a required component of the admission process, we do encourage students to submit one when possible. So this is a passive-aggressive way of saying you kind of have to do it, and it's not that difficult to film one. When you Google example videos, sometimes you see all these super fancy cinematic videos that applicants have made in the past. But really, you could just be talking to your phone without any equipment or editing. When I made this video, I was just talking to myself for 2 minutes and put in some pictures through iMovie. I'm a bit embarrassed to show you the whole thing, but here's a little movie time.
So far from my application, you might know me as a musician, a writer, and a biologist. Being interest has been more than just a hobby for me. It's sort of like a creative exercise. The project has been an art collection inspired by the book College's Travels. In the book, the main character, Gulliver, meets these population of really tiny people who are less than a hand-sized tall called little creatures. And I found these little creatures so fascinating that I decided to make an entire one way for me to appreciate those small things.
As you can see, this video does not have to be fancy. It's just another way to show the school that you're a real person and that you care about the school. I would say the same thing for other supplemental materials like the art supplement. If you're a talented musician or an artist, you should seriously consider sending in music recordings, writing excerpts, and visual arts portfolio. And honestly, they don't have to be studio quality. It could be photographed on your phone and simply uploaded. I don't think you can lose from adding more information about your interests, especially if you're very passionate and very good at it. So my last tip to you is to take all chances and not take the word optional too literally. In many ways, College App is just like a dating app. You're putting yourself out there, letting schools know about who you are, why you're so great, and hopefully find a match or a relationship for the next 4 years. Just as you would with a romantic partner, be honest with what you're looking for. How expensive is it to be with them? Check the school's tuition and run the net price calculator. Will you need to move across the country or even the globe for the school? Do you need to learn a new language for them? These are valid, important questions that you should have in mind throughout the process. If you don't get into a school, it doesn't mean you're any less smart or capable than the other applicants, but that the school was looking for something else. Maybe they just have a running type and it just wasn't a match. So think of college admissions more like a matchmaking process. I think this perspective takes some pressure off your chest and reminds you that this is a two-way street where you have a very important say. As a parting word, I want to wish you guys the bestest of luck, and I hope you have a smooth rest of your application experience. If you have more questions, please drop them in the comments, and I'll try to get to as many as possible, and I think others in the comments will also be able to help answer some of your questions along the way. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.